Hi, and welcome back to Batty.com. Today we are starting a series on the importance of testing, and to kick it off, we are presenting the Batty.com 90 through 96 Corvette Instrument Panel Tester. Rumor is that Crazy Uncle Burton went for a late night stroll one evening around the development basement lair and tripped over a pile of Motor Trend magazines that he thought he threw out after they canceled his favorite shows, Roadkill and Hot Rod Garage. Whacked his head really hard on the concrete, and this is what gave him the idea for the computer-controlled dynamic sensor array. Afterward, he spent thousands of hours in the development basement cave inventing the instrument panel tester that you see here today. The question comes up over and over again: do you actually test repairs before you send them back? The answer is yes, we do. Our philosophy is if it's not tested, it doesn't work. And if it's not tested, it isn't repaired. We have spent the last 3 years developing the Batty.com 90 through 96 Corvette Cluster Tester. We are quite proud that this is a product that was invented right here at Batty.com. Any cluster you send us will be tested using this process and this equipment, and there's no charge for those tests. There are many variants of the instrument panel used in 90 through 96 Corvettes, and this tester is designed to test each and every feature of every style cluster. This is not simply a gimmick box full of switches and wires like some of the testers out there. This is a fully computerized instrument panel tester. It has a color touch screen for input. It is designed to simulate all the sensors and all the computers in the car that the instrument panel would interact with. The computer controls the dynamic sensor network, which lets the instrument panel test every function of the 90 through 96 Corvette instrument panel. This includes the LCD panel, the lighting on the gauge faces, the lighting on the needles, the lighting on the LCD panel. It tests the dimming functionality of the cluster, and it tests the function of all analog gauges at each of their marked positions. On the back, you'll find a cooling fan to evacuate the heat generated by the dynamic sensor network. There's also a ground lug on the back to make it easy to connect the tester ground to the ground of any test equipment that might be connected. Everything is powered by a medical grade power supply. One of the problems we discovered early on in testing was that after a few thousand uses, the cable wears out. So we made the cable replaceable. This is a 94 through 95 ZR1 cluster or a 96 LT4 cluster. We know this because the white gauge faces started appearing in 1994 Corvettes, and we know that it has an 8K tach. When we fire up the tester, we see a little advertisement for Batty.com. We see a QR code that will take you to our site for parts and repair info. Then it asks for the year of the cluster. This tells the instrument panel what senders and signals to send the cluster. This is a 92 through 96. Then we'll say next. We'll change the tach to 8K RPM and say next. Next, we have the option to run a burn-in mode or to run individual tests. The burn-in mode is a pre-recorded drive cycle that will test every function of the cluster. We would use this after a repair to warm up and exercise the functions of the cluster and make sure that it's working before we send it back. We'll choose next to proceed with the guided test. The initial conditions are shown because the instrument panel will behave differently when it's warm than it does when it's cool. This next screen is called Quick Test. It shows an image on the LCD. It sets the senders for all gauges to nominal operating conditions, and it sets the tach to full scale. The mileage is not stored in the cluster, so we had to make up something to show you during the screen. We chose the name of our company so that it would be obvious that this is not your mileage. There's a problem with this instrument panel. It's being commanded to show 8,000 RPM, and it's showing much higher than that. So we will make a note to fix that while it's apart for the other repairs. The lights are being operated at full brightness. We will show you that later. Oil pressure, oil temperature, water temperature are all set to the larger marked positions. The speed and the fuel level you see on the screen is not measured by the instrument panel. This is the job of the central control module. So we made up 60 miles an hour and a full tank of gas for the purposes of this screen. The next test is the all LCD segments on test. What we're checking for is to see if all segments can be turned on, including the really small decimal points. Can we turn all segments on? Can we turn them off? We're also looking at contrast during this test. Contrast will be the darkness of the black segments. They should be black. How readable is that information on the screen? Has the polarizing film started to fade yet is really what we're looking at. The next test is the tach test. We're sending specific values of tach signal to the cluster, and we're checking to see if the indicated position is correct. Since we see the tach reading slightly below RPM, we know that there is likely a problem with the analog calibration IC. We can see that 4,000 RPM gives 4,400 RPM indicated. 8,000 reads about 1,000 RPM high. The varying tach test steps through individual 1,000 RPM steps marked on the tach face. This lets us test it at idle and at full RPM and everywhere in between. We're also watching the movement between steps to see if the needle moves freely or if it's maybe dragging. There's no dragging. The needle is moving freely the way that it should. But if it were moving slowly, we would look at things like, is it touching the gauge face? Is the meter movement maybe full of cobwebs? That sort of thing. Another part of the varying tach test is that at any point in time, we can stop it and let us take any photos that are needed. Let us test the tach circuitry at a specific RPM. The next step is to warm up the analog gauges. They respond much differently when they are warm than they do when they're cold. So we want to make sure we are testing them under the warm conditions that we'd see when the cluster is running in your car. It takes about 90 seconds to warm those coils and shunt resistors up for a proper test. For this next test, we're stepping through the oil pressure positions, comparing the number on the tester to the number on the instrument panel to be sure they match. This one does appear to indicate proper pressures, but it's a bit slow to move, so we'll make a note to clean that while we're doing the repairs. This is the oil test, doing the same thing here, comparing the marked positions to the expected value on the tester. This one is working properly, and for reference, it is moving freely the way we would expect it to. The next test is the coolant temperature, and this one is working properly as well. The next step is to move the needles from 0 scale to full scale and back again. It's another way for us to check the movement of those needles. Next is the voltage gauge test. The instrument panel measures the input voltage and presents it on the screen. We are indeed testing at 15 volts. This is a much more realistic test than 12 volts would be. It simulates the output of a good alternator and stresses the instrument panel to the 15 volt point. We are checking to see if the indicated reading matches the value on the screen. The marked position near that gauge would be 15.5 volts, so we are indeed reading what we should. The next test is running all the lights at full brightness. This lets us see how bright the instrument panel should be in this running in full sunlight with the headlights off. It's prompting us to turn the cluster over and look at the back, so we'll do that now. What we see is that the bulbs are all lit, and they're lit about the same brightness. This would tell us if we have any bulbs out, or if we have any bulbs that are running at diminished brightness, which is common at the end of the bulb's life. The next test is running with the lights at 10% brightness. This simulates the dimmer function, either with the headlights on and the headlight switch rotated to full dim, or it also simulates headlights off and operating in a dark condition, like testing in a garage or a tunnel or in the evening. The LCD panel and the needle illumination bulbs and the gauge face bulbs dim during this test, but the warning lights around the edge of the panel always run at full brightness, just the way that it would in your car. Okay, this completes the testing process. The next screen is going to show us our final testing conditions, voltage and temperature at the end of the tests. And next, a splash screen will show us where to get parts. The next screen gives us the firmware of the tester and says, made by Crazy Uncle Burton. And the next screen lets us reset the cluster for the next test. The burn-in test is how we test the cluster when we finish the repairs. It runs in an unattended fashion, and it tests each of the cluster function hundreds of times over the course of 24 hours. Here we see it stepping through all the tests we showed you previously. It's done in an unattended fashion so that we can test this on a rack overnight. This helps us identify things like infant mortality issues with light bulbs, as well as heat-related issues, cold solder joints, and that sort of thing. When the 24-hour test is done, we do one final inspection test to be sure everything is performing the way it should, and then we ship it back to the customer. People who install the tach IC themselves frequently ask us how we calibrate the tach here in the repair shop. Here we're going to show you a photo of that. The cluster tester comes with this extension cable, which inserts between the tack needle movement and the circuit board. This gets us the space we need to adjust the potentiometer on the cluster IC. The tester drives the tack circuitry at half scale and again at full scale. And then we adjust the analog calibration IC potentiometer until the needle matches the input speed from the cluster tester. A question that we get a lot is, why is it so expensive? The short answer is, we spent about 3 years developing this product. This is major version 6, and there have been countless prototypes along the way. So our development costs are extremely high. It's manufactured in low volume, so economy of scale is kind of out the window here. As a result, we use it primarily for in-house testing of the clusters we repair. You do not have to purchase the cluster tester to get the tests. If you send a cluster to us, we'll test it for free. If you or your car club wants a cluster tester, they are still available on our website as of July 2025. When you purchase a cluster tester, you get the 15-volt medical grade power supply, you get a tack extension cable, and you get a USB drive. This contains a repository of all the info we've compiled on 90 through 96 Corvette clusters, including schematics, wiring diagrams, year-to-year variances, expected sensor values, and a collection of high-res images of the expected cluster reaction for each and every style cluster for each and every step in the test. What's coming up next? We are currently working on more videos to showcase the importance we place on testing here at Batty.com. If you want to see more of that type of content, go ahead and like and subscribe below. As always, you can go to Batty.com to find the parts and tools used in these repairs, and we have even more free information, like free schematics and free wiring diagrams, available at our website, Batty.com. That's BATEE.com. Thank you so much for supporting us. My name is Brian Thompson. On behalf of Tristan and Beverly and Crazy Uncle Burton, thank you for watching.